मीडिया वेस तो खबरों का लेखा जोखा प्रोग्राम ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪ ਸਭ ਦਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ।
Khabran Da Lekha Jokha September 16, 2024 has been sponsored by Hanif Litigation. Any criminal or regulatory law matters, contact lawyer Shahid Hanif at Hanif Litigation 604-626-3144. Coalition of Metro Vancouver officials call for immediate action by FADS province to address public safety. A coalition of Metro Vancouver officials is calling on the provincial and federal governments to do something about public safety and the ongoing mental health crisis. Vancouver Mayor Ken Sem confronted the media Monday morning, flanked by his city's fire and police chiefs and counterparts from other Metro Vancouver municipalities. The coalition issued a 3-point plan urging immediate action to be taken on the public safety and mental health crisis gripping Vancouver and other communities across this province of ours. And we are united in calling for immediate action to address the crisis on 3 critical fronts, Sim says. Firstly, they want Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to provide funding to help care for those dealing with severe mental health and addiction. Secondly, we are requesting quick and decisive action both by the Premier and the federal government to bring forward meaningful bail reform for repeat offenders, Sim explained. Finally, the coalition is calling once again on the Prime Minister and the federal government to take decisive action when it comes to implementing actual policing at Metro Vancouver's port to combat organized crime by stopping the importation of illicit toxic drugs. Sim explained he and other members of the coalition were buoyed by Premier David Eby's announcement on Sunday that a re-elected NDP government would create a $1 billion involuntary treatment program for people suffering from a combination of mental illness, addiction and brain injury. Eby shared at the time that legislation would provide clarity and ensure people, including youth, would be able to receive care when they are unable to seek it themselves. I do want to take a moment to recognize Premier David Eby for his announcement yesterday to implement mandatory care and the creation of 400 mental health beds across the province. Now the provincial government's willingness to partner with us on public safety by pivoting on policies like decriminalization and now addressing the mental health and addictions crisis shows a commitment to real change, Sim shared. This is an incredibly vital step forward, and I know if you ask anybody here today, they would agree that our top priority as mayors and community leaders, once again, regardless of political affiliation, is the safety and the well-being of every single person in our communities that are struggling with mental health and addiction challenges, or if they are just kids or parents or business owners or visitors to our region. Sim went on to say the current system has failed British Columbians and their families for decades. This has been going on for a long time, calling out those who have been the victim of assaults and random attacks. The number of individuals that are battling severe mental health and addiction issues and possesses a risk to themselves and others due to lack of adequate care has reached a critical point. Sim questioned why individuals with severe mental health challenges or substance use disorders are allowed to direct their own care. It's compassionate. That's actually neglect, he stated. And while yesterday's announcement of the 400 mental health beds across this province is an incredible first step, more needs to be done. The mental health crisis has only intensified. Vancouver needs a minimum of 400 beds in our city alone. Sim looked back at an incident earlier this month in downtown Vancouver where one man was killed and another critically injured, allegedly by an accused with a history of severe mental illness. Vancouver Police Department Chief Adam Palmer says those who need the most help can be wandering the streets. Palmer reiterated that while the overall rate of crime in Vancouver is down, it could put comfort to people who feel unsafe when they hear reports in the news of incidents involving a repeat offender who's been released from custody, who then re-offends. Palmer said that the September 4th incident is not acceptable by anyone's definition and that the proliferation of drugs and other illegal items in the city can cause fear in the community. We need to take immediate action to come together to take thoughtful and humane actions for the benefit of everybody in our communities throughout British Columbia, he said. Existing public policy decisions and approaches by higher level of government have been inadequate and are not working. They are full of gaps and they have led to significant public safety concerns, not only by the people standing here today, but by the members of the public that we serve. You have probably heard that saying, predictable is preventable, and the things we are talking about today are very predictable. These are the things that we can see countless times before, and many of the tragic outcomes that we've seen in our cities are preventable, Palmer said.
ਮੈਟਰੋ ਵੈਨਕੂਵਰ ਦੇ ਹਾਈ ਅਫੀਸ਼ੀਅਲਸ ਦੀ ਅੱਜ ਇਕੱਠ ਹੋਇਆ ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਨਤਕ ਸੁਰੱਖਿਆ ਦੇ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਸੇਫਟੀ ਦੇ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਤਿੰਨੇ ਲੈਵਲ ਦੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਸਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਨੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ ਤੇ ਸੂਬਾ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਨਾਲ ਮਿਲਾ ਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਜਨਤਕ ਸੁਰੱਖਿਆ ਦੇ ਹਿੱਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੰਗਾਂ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ 3 ਮੁੱਦੇ ਉਠਾਏ ਨੇ। ਪਹਿਲਾ ਤੇ ਮਾਨਸਿਕ ਉਲਝਣਾਂ ਦਾ ਹੈ, ਮੈਂਟਲ ਹੈਲਥ ਦਾ ਹੈ, ਦੂਸਰਾ ਓਵਰਡੋਜ਼ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੈ, ਤੀਸਰਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਕਿਸ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਰ ਸਾਡੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਰਹੱਦਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਦੀ ਹੋਰ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਬਾਰਡਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਰਿਪੋਰਟਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਦੇ ਹੋਰ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਪ੍ਰਬੰਧ ਕੀਤੇ ਜਾਣ। ਮੈਂਟਲ ਹੈਲਥ ਦੇ ਮੁਤਲਕ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਸੂਬਾ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਦਿਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਐਲਾਨਨਾਮਾ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਮਦਦਗਾਰ ਸਾਬਤ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ 400 ਬੈੱਡ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਵੈਨਕੂਵਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਾਨਸਿਕ ਉਲਝਣਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਪਰੇਸ਼ਾਨ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ 400 ਬੈੱਡਸ ਦੀ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਹੈ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਹਵਾਲਾ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਦਿਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 4 ਸਤੰਬਰ ਨੂੰ ਡਾਊਨਟਾਊਨ ਵੈਨਕੂਵਰ ਵਿਖੇ ਹੋਈ ਘਟਨਾ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸੁਨੇਹਾ ਸਪਸ਼ਟ ਰੂਪ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਸ ਗੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਪ੍ਰੈਡਿਕਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਜਿਸ ਦੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿਆਸ ਗੋਈ ਲਗਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਇਹਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਚਾਅ ਵੀ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ।
Perfect storm to hit BC healthcare system this fall, local doctor warns. With COVID-19 cases currently rising in BC, one Burnaby-based family doctor warns the healthcare system could be shaken this fall and winter with a lot of people getting sick. Dr. David Wong says in addition to that virus, RSV is also circulating in communities on the cusp of cold and flu season. He explains COVID-19 didn't disappear this summer and believes people aren't following the directions given earlier in the pandemic, like masking or washing your hands consistently. We are seeing COVID carried through all the way through the summer, said Wong. It was off the radar. They thought they had a cold, and I knew things were going to get worse because people weren't aware of the last spring vaccine boosters that they could get. Wong points out he's hearing from patients who can't find test kits and says recently expired ones aren't as reliable. He says people move indoors more when the temperatures drop. The risk increases. The updated COVID-19 booster shot is expected to be made available next month along with the flu shot, which is free for most people in the province. Wait until the new vaccine comes out, so not much protection for those who haven't had a booster or haven't had COVID recently. But at least we can get our flu shots to help reduce the risk. We expect to be a lot busier. We expect our patients to be a lot stricter. Wong thinks it's time people consider wearing masks again and suggests they do so as soon as they start to feel sick. He says the other risk this fall is getting sick with back-to-back illnesses, having one virus or infection, feeling recovered and then getting sick again right away. That's why we want to prevent the flu. If you have influenza, you're vulnerable. Your immune system is stressed and you're liable to get exposed to other infections like bacteria, and you might come down with bacterial pneumonia after getting exposed to a second illness. The provincial government says flu shots should start to roll out in October. However, a set date for availability has yet to be announced.
ਇਸ ਪਤਝੜ ਦੀ ਰੁੱਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਹਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਲੋਕੀ ਆਮ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਬਿਮਾਰ ਹੋਣਗੇ। ਵਰਲਡ ਦੇ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਗਰਮੀ ਦੀ ਰੁੱਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਜ਼ਿਹਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਕੋਵਿਡ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਇਸ ਵੱਲ ਕੋਈ ਬਹੁਤੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਤਵੱਜੋ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਗਈ। ਲੋਕੀ ਵੈਸੇ ਵੀ ਅਵੇਸਰੇ ਹੋ ਗਏ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਨ ਨਾ ਤਵੱਜੋ ਦੇਣ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਨ ਲੋਕ ਇੱਕ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਦੂਸਰੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਤੀਸਰੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਬਿਮਾਰ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਗਏ। ਯਾਦ ਰਹੇ ਅਕਤੂਬਰ ਦੇ ਮਹੀਨੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਫਲੂ ਸ਼ਾਟਸ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਲੱਗਣ ਦੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਜਾਏਗਾ, ਪਰ ਸੂਬੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਹਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਨਿਰਧਾਰਤ ਤਾਰੀਖ ਤੇ ਨਸ਼ਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ। ਪਰ ਫਲੂ ਸ਼ਾਟਸ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੈਣ ਦੀ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਲਗਵਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹਦਾਇਤਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ ਗਈਆਂ ਨੇ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਰ ਦੀ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬਿਮਾਰ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਗਿਣਤੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੱਡੀ ਪੱਧਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਵਾਧਾ ਹੋਣ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਸ਼ੰਕਾ ਹੈ ਇਸ ਪਤਝੜ ਦੀ ਰੁੱਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਠੱਲ ਪਾਈ ਜਾ ਸਕੇ।
Scary, disappointing. EB's U-turn on involuntary care, advocate says. A surprise promise from BC's Premier about involuntary treatment for mental illness, addiction and brain injury is being called disappointing and scary by one frontline worker in Vancouver's downtown east side. Tyson Singh Khalsal, an outreach social worker and researcher at Simon Fraser University's Health Sciences, is worried it has the potential to scare vulnerable people away from seeking care. I knew there would be an expansion of some kind of involuntary or forced treatment, but I didn't expect this to be the next step of undoing harm reduction and being the progressive leader of NDP, said Khalsal. He calls it a political gamble on Premier David Eby's part. On Sunday, Eby announced that re-elected NDP government would create $1 billion involuntary treatment program for people suffering from the combination of mental illness, addiction and brain injury. Eby promised the legislation would provide clarity and ensure people, including youth, would be able to receive care when they are unable to seek it themselves. Council argues involuntary treatment goes against recommendations made to the provincial government to help deal with the unregulated toxic drug crisis. We are weaponizing the crisis. We are weaponizing the people who we've lost to the crisis. We not only know involuntary treatment doesn't work, it also has negative outcomes in research done around the world. But he says it does work as a sound bite and a distraction from other pressing issues like housing and health care. Kelsey also fears involuntary treatment would drive some people away from seeking care. One of the things I hear almost every shift I take the downtown east side on outreach is that people are worried about not engaging in healthcare because it might lead to this apprehension and forced hospitalization, forced injections of antipsychotics and long-lasting opioids, he explained. As a social worker, I also have concern this kind of policy would drive people away in what we call care avoidance. EB's announcement came amid increased concerns about public safety, including the latest violent random assaults in Vancouver earlier this month where one person was maimed and another killed in knife attack. The Premier's promise also comes a week before the official launch of the provincial election campaign and 3 months after he appointed Dr. Daniel Vigo as BC's first chief scientific advisor for psychiatric toxic drugs and concurrent disorders. The government says it will be releasing clarifications from the Vigo on how he believes the Mental Health Act can be used to provide voluntary and involuntary care when people have disorders alongside addictions. EB says the province will also be setting up a designated mental health unit in a BC Correctional Centre, starting with a 10-bed facility at the Surrey Pre-Trial Service Centre to provide rapid treatment for people with mental health and addiction challenges being held in custody.
सूबा मुख्यमंत्री वालों कल किए गए ऐलान इनवॉलंटरी ट्रीटमेंट के मुतलक उसके बारे जवाब आ रहे हैं, खास तौर पर ईस्ट साइड वैनकूवर के संस्था के ਨਾਲ ਕੰਮ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਦਾ ਸਪਸ਼ਟੀਕਰਨ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਰ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਾਰਗੁਜ਼ਾਰੀ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਕੋਈ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਫਾਇਦੇਮੰਦ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਣੀ, ਬਲਕਿ ਉਹ ਲੋਕ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਟ੍ਰੀਟਮੈਂਟ ਲੈਣ ਤੋਂ ਡਰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਡਰਦੇ ਹਸਪਤਾਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਕਿਸੇ ਹੋਰ ਕਾਰਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਾਣਗੇ। ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਤੇ ਵੀ ਸ਼ੰਕਾ ਜਤਾਈ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਦੀ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਆਫੀਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਅਨਾਉਂਸਮੈਂਟ ਹੋਣ ਤੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਹਫ਼ਤਾ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬਿਆਨਬਾਜ਼ੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਕੀ ਰਾਹ ਦਰਸਾਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ। ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੀ ਸੂਬਾ ਮੁੱਖ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਨੇ ਮਾਨਸਿਕ ਤੇ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਨਸ਼ਾ ਤੇ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਸਿਰ ਦੀਆਂ ਸੱਟਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵਿਤ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ $1 ਬਿਲੀਅਨ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦਾ ਐਲਾਨਨਾਮਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਐਤਵਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ।
Air Canada on charm offensive trying to ease travelers' worries as tentative deal reached with pilots. Air Canada is trying to get travelers back in the air now that a threatened work stoppage is over before it began. The carrier and its unionized pilots reached a tentative contract deal over the weekend. And now the airline is offering 25% discounts on some new bookings, bonus aeroplane points and vouchers for its lounges. But one hospitality expert says while it's all part of Air Canada's plan to entice travelers back into the air, the damage may have already been done. Frederick Dimanche with Toronto Metropolitan University says companies in the hospitality industries, hotels, venues, and host conventions, restaurants, and others will still deal with a few bumps and bruises. The hotels are not able to accommodate the business troubles that they should normally have during that time, so obviously there will be a loss of revenue from many suppliers in the industry, he explained. Canada's largest air carrier announced shortly after midnight Sunday that it had reached a tentative 4-year collective agreement with the Airline Pilots Association. The deal reached after more than a year of contract negotiations ended the possibility that the 5,200 Air Canada pilots represented by the union could be locked out of work off the job. Any such move would have forced the airline to suspend nearly all operations, a prospect that raised concerns among business groups, passengers, and even the Prime Minister. Dimanche says the impact would have been worse in smaller communities that get smaller conventions, but those events bring a lot of money and people to town. Destinations that Air Canada is flying to, especially destinations where Air Canada is the main player, Dimanche explained. Thinking about hotels, I'm thinking about conferences that don't get their business travelers. I'm thinking about hotels that are not able to accommodate the business travelers that they should normally have, he added. He says that especially would have been the situation if the work stoppage had gone ahead.
에ਅਰ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ 5200 ਦੇ ਕਰੀਬ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪਾਇਲਟਸ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਯੂਨੀਅਨ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੀ ਸਹਿਮਤੀਨਾਮਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ, ਡੀਲ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਡਨ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਹੈ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਨ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋਣ ਵਾਲੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੜਤਾਲ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਖਤਮ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਹੈ। ਪਰ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਪੱਖੀ ਪੈ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਹੋਰ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਪੱਖ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਪੈ ਸਕਦੀ ਉਸ ਦਾ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਵੀ ਹੋਇਆ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਇਸ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਪਾਇਲਟਸ ਦੇ ਸਟ੍ਰਾਈਕ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਜਾਣ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਫਲਾਈਟਸ ਦੇ ਕੈਂਸਲ ਹੋਣ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਵਪਾਰ ਹੋਟਲਸ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਹਰ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਰ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵਪਾਰ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੇ ਮਾੜੇ ਪੈ ਸਕਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੇਸ਼ੱਕ ਬਚਾ ਲਿਆ ਗਿਆ, ਪਰ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਕੁਝ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅਸਰ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਰਿਕਵਰ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੁਝ ਸਮਾਂ ਅਜੇ ਹੋਰ ਲੱਗੇਗਾ।
Liberals announce expansion to mortgage eligibility, draft rights for renters and buyers. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland has announced changes to mortgage rules she says are aimed at helping more Canadians to purchase their first home. It's going to put the dream of home ownership in reach for more Canadians. Freeland told reporters Monday, announcing changes she said will come into force in December. The price cap for insured mortgages will be boosted for the first time since 2012, moving to $1.5 million from $1 million to allow more people to qualify for a mortgage with less than a 20% down payment. That is going to have a real impact for thousands, even millions of Canadians, Freeland said. The government will also expand its 30-year mortgage amortization to include first-time home buyers buying any type of home as well as anybody buying a newly built home. On August 1st, eligibility for the 30-year-old amortization has changed to include first-time buyers purchasing a new built home. Freeland said this chance better reflects the housing market while giving first-time home buyers a leg up. She pushed back on suggestions that the measures will only further inflate housing prices. She said boosting the price cap for insured mortgages reflects how Canada's gross domestic product has grown over years. It needs to keep up with increase in the size of the Canadian economy. Freeland said that's just a recognition of economic reality. Justice Minister Arif Virani is also releasing drafts for a Bill of Rights for renters as well as one for home buyers, both of which the government promised in its budget 5 months ago. Virani says the government intends to work with provinces to prevent practices like renovictions where landlords evict tenants and make minimal renovations and then seek higher rents. Ottawa also wants to boost transparency by making sales price history available on title searches and protect potential buyers from blind bidding. What we find is important is ensuring that there is a level playing field when you are trying to rent a place to live or to actually get to the stage of buying a home, Virani said. The government is touting the measures it announced Monday as the boldest mortgage reforms in decades, and it comes after a year of criticism over high housing costs. The Liberals have been slumping in the polls for months, including among younger adults who say not being able to afford a house is one of their key concerns. Freeland says says she plans to table a full economic statement but would not say when. Such a move may lead to a confidence vote in the Commons following the NDP ending a formal agreement to prop up the minority Liberal government in such votes. She also said the government is absolutely not considering a home equity tax on primary residence above a certain value when asked about government engagement with a group that promotes such a policy.
ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਤਬਕੇ ਨਿਰਾਸ਼ ਹੋਏ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨਸ ਦੇ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਤਬਕੇ ਨੂੰ ਮੁੜ ਆਸਵੰਦ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੇ ਨਵੇਂ ਘਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਖਰੀਦਣੇ ਆ ਯੰਗ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਫਸਟ ਟਾਈਮ ਬਾਇਰਸ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਕਾਫੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਵਧੀਆ ਐਲਾਨਨਾਮੇ ਕੀਤੇ ਨੇ ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿ ਮੌਰਗੇਜ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪੇ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ ਸਮਾਂ 30 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਤੱਕ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਜਾਣ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਮੌਰਗੇਜ ਦੀ ਹੱਦਬੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕੁਆਲੀਫਾਈ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਵਾਧਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ। ਕਾਰਨ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਕੁਝ ਸਮੇਂ ਤੋਂ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਤਬਕੇ ਦਾ ਨਿਰਾਸ਼ ਹੋ ਜਾਣਾ ਕਿ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਘਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਖਰੀਦ ਸਕਣਗੇ ਔਰ ਕ੍ਰਿਸਟੀਆ ਫਰੀਲੈਂਡ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਕਾਰਗੁਜ਼ਾਰੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹ ਉਤਸ਼ਾਹਤ ਹੋਣਗੇ। ਯਾਦ ਰਹੇ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਾਊਸਿੰਗ ਅਫੋਰਡੇਬਿਲਟੀ ਦੇ ਅੰਤਰਗਤ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਈ ਨੁਕਤੇ ਵੀ ਹਨ ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਤਰਤੀਬਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਨਵੇਂ ਬਣਾ ਘਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਖਰੀਦਣ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਹੋਣਗੀਆਂ ਔਰ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਰਟੀ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹਿਸਟਰੀ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਪਾਰਦਰਸ਼ਕ ਕਰਨਾ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਅੰਨ੍ਹੇਵਾਹ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਨਿਲਾਮੀ ਦੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਬਿਡਸ ਲਗਾਈਆਂ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਬੰਦਸ਼ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ ਹੋ ਸਕੇ।
Catch a partial lunar eclipse during September's supermoon. Get ready for a partial lunar eclipse and supermoon all rolled into one. The spectacle will be visible in clear skies across North America and South America Tuesday night and in Africa and Europe Wednesday morning. A partial lunar eclipse happens when the Earth passes between the sun and moon, casting a shadow that darkens the silver of the moon and appears to take a bite out of it. Since the moon will inch closer to Earth than usual, it'll appear a bit larger in the sky. The supermoon is one of the 3 remaining this year. A little bit of sun's light is being blocked, so the moon will be slightly dimmer, said Valerie Rapson, an astronomer at the State University of New York at Oneonta. The Earth, Moon and Sun line up to produce solar or lunar eclipse anywhere from 4 to 7 times a year, according to NASA. This lunar eclipse is the second and final of the year after a slight darkening in March. A total solar eclipse plunged select cities into darkness across North America in April. No special eye protection is needed to view a lunar eclipse. Viewers can stare at the moon with the naked eye or opt for binoculars and telescopes to get a closer look. To spot the moon's subtle changes over time, hang outside for a few hours or take multiple peeks over the course of the evening, said Ka Chun Yu, curator at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. From one minute to the next, you might not see much happening, said Yu. For more striking lunar sights, sky watchers can set their calendars for March 13. The moon will be totally eclipsed by the Earth's shadow and will be painted red by stray bits of sunlight flickering through the Earth's atmosphere.
ਚੰਦਰ ਗ੍ਰਹਿਣ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਸ ਦੀਆਂ ਸੂਚਨਾਵਾਂ ਆ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਸਾਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ 3 ਤੋਂ 4 ਦਫਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਅਗਲਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵੱਡਾ ਚੰਦਰ ਗ੍ਰਹਿਣ ਹੈ ਉਹ 13 ਮਾਰਚ ਨੂੰ ਅਗਲੇ ਵਰੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਉਣਾ ਹੈ ਪਰ ਇਹ ਉਦੋਂ ਵਾਪਰਦਾ ਹੈ ਜਦੋਂ ਸੂਰਜ ਚੰਨ ਤੇ ਧਰਤੀ ਆਪਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਸਰੇ ਦੇ ਵਿਚਕਾਰ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਆ ਔਰ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਕੁਝ ਕੁ ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਦੇਖਣ ਵਾਲਾ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਚੰਦਰ ਗ੍ਰਹਿਣ ਹੈ ਇਹਦੇ ਲਈ ਤੁਹਾਡੀਆਂ ਅੱਖਾਂ ਜਾਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਬਹੁਤਾ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਪੈਣਾ ਨਾ ਹੀ ਕਿਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲ ਐਨਕਾਂ ਵਰਤਣ ਦੀਆਂ ਹਦਾਇਤਾਂ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ ਗਈਆਂ ਨੇ।
Tensions bound as MPs return to House of Commons par over carbon price. Liberal House leader Kirina Gold lambasted Conservative leader Pierre Pulver as a fraudster Monday morning after he said the federal carbon price is going to cause a nuclear winter. Gold was speaking just before the House of Commons is set to reopen following the summer break. Monday is the first sitting since the end of an agreement that the NDP insulate the Liberals from the possibility of a snap election, one the Conservatives are eager to trigger. With the prospect of confidence vote that could send Canadians to the polls, Bloc Quebec's leader Yves Francois Blanchard cast doubt on how long MPs will be sitting in the House of Commons. We are playing chicken with 4 cars. Eventually, one will eat another one and there will be a wreckage. So I'm not certain that this session will last a very long time, Blanchett told reporters on Monday. On Sunday, Poliver said increasing the carbon price will cause a nuclear winter, painting a dystopian picture of people starving and freezing because they can't afford food or heat due the carbon price. He said the Liberals' obsession with carbon pricing is an essential threat to our economy and our way of life. The carbon price currently adds about 17.6 cents to every litre of gasoline, but the cost is offset by carbon rebates mailed to Canadians every 3 months. The Parliamentary Budget Office provided analysis that showed 8 in 10 households receive more than the rebates than they pay in carbon pricing, though the office also warned that long-term economic effects could harm jobs and wage growth. Gould accused Poliver of ignoring the rebates and refusing to tell Canadians how he would make life more affordable while battling climate change. What I heard yesterday from Mr. Poliver was so over the top, so irresponsible, so immature, and something that only a fraudster would do, Gould said from Parliament Hill. The Liberals have also accused the Conservatives of dismissing the expertise of more than 200 economists who wrote a letter earlier this year describing the carbon price as the least expensive, most efficient way to lower emissions. Poliver is pushing for the other opposition parties to vote the government down and trigger what he calls a carbon tax election. Despite previously supporting the consumer carbon price, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh has been distancing himself from the policy. Singh wouldn't say last week whether an NDP government would keep the consumer carbon price. On Monday, he told reporters Canadians were already doing their part to fight climate change, but that big pollsters are getting a free ride. He said the New Democrats will focus this fall on affordability issues like housing and grocery costs, arguing that Liberals and Conservatives are beholden to big businesses. The governments have been in it for CEOs and big corporations, he told reporters Monday on Parliament Hill. Poliver intends to bring a non-confidence motion against the government as early as this week, but would likely need both the Bloc and NDP to support it. Neither have indicated an appetite for triggering an election. Gould says she has no crystal ball over when or how often Poliver might try to bring down the government. I know that at the end of the supply and confidence agreement makes things a bit different, but really all it does is return us to a normal minority parliament, she said. That means that we will work case by case, legislation by legislation, with whichever party wants to work with us, she said, adding she's already been in touch with colleagues in other parties to make Parliament work for Canadians. The Liberals said at the caucus retreat last week that they would be sharpening their attacks on Poliver this fall, seeking to reverse his months-long rise in the polls. Freeland suggested she had no qualms with criticizing Poliver's while having a colleague call him a fraudster. She said Monday that the Liberals must be really clear with Canadians about what the Conservative Party is saying, about what it is standing for, and about the veracity or not of the statements of the Conservative leaders. Meanwhile, Gould insisted that the government has listened to the concerns raised by Canadians and received the message when the Liberals were defeated in a Toronto by-election in June, losing a seat the party had held ever since 1997. We certainly got the message from Toronto St. Paul's and have spent the summer reflecting on what that means and are coming back to Parliament. I think very clearly focused on ensuring that Canadians are at the centre of everything that we do moving forward, she said. The Liberals are bracing, however, for the possibility of another blow Monday night in a tight race to hold a Montreal seat in a by-election there. Voters in La Salle, Ahmad, Verdun are casting ballots today to replace former Justice Minister David Lametti, who was removed from the cabinet in 2023 and resigned as an MP in January. The Conservatives said NDP are also in a tight race in Elmwood, Transcona, a Winnipeg seat that has mostly been held by the NDP over the last several decades. There are several key bills making their way through the legislative process, including the Online Harm Act and NDP-endorsed Pharmacare Bill, which is currently in the Senate.
8ਵਾਂ ਵਿਖੇ ਅੱਜ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਸੈਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਚੁਣੇ ਹੋਏ ਨੁਮਾਇੰਦੇ ਐਮਪੀਸ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅੱਜ ਪਤਝੜ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਹ ਫੁੱਲ ਸੀਜ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾਰਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਣੀ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਰਿਪਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨਸ ਦੇ ਮੁੱਦਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਪੂਰੀ ਕਰਨਗੇ। ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਕਿਆਸ ਕੋਈਆਂ ਲਗਾਈਆਂ ਜਾ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਐਨਡੀਪੀ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਮੌਜੂਦਾ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਲਿਬਰਲ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਸਮਰਥਨ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਐਗਰੀਮੈਂਟ ਹੈ ਸਮਝੌਤਾ ਸੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਕਾਟੀ ਪੈ ਜਾਣ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਇਹ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਸੈਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕਿ ਵਿਰੋਧੀ ਧਿਰ ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਕਾਰਬਨ ਟੈਕਸ ਦੇ ਆਧਾਰ ਬਣਾ ਕੇ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਦੀ ਮੰਗ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਉੱਥੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਸਪਸ਼ਟ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਪਿਛਲੀ ਰਿਟਰੀਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਐਨਡੀਪੀ ਦੇ ਮੁਖੀ ਜਗਮੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਸਪਸ਼ਟ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵੋਟ ਹੈ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪੱਕੇ ਦਾ ਪੱਕਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਮਰਥਨ ਆ ਉਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੇਣਗੇ। ਬਾਕੀ ਟੈਕਸ, ਗੈਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਟੈਕਸ ਆ ਵੱਡਾ ਮੁੱਦਾ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਖੇਤਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵ ਪਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਦੇਖਣਾ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਕੀ ਇਹ ਸਭ ਕੁਝ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅਕਤੂਬਰ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਕੀ ਹੋ ਸਕੇਗੀ ਜਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ। ਪਰ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਬਲਾਕ ਨੇ ਬੜਾ ਮਜ਼ਾਈਆ ਗੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਬਰਕਰਾਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਕਿਹਾ, ਗੱਲ ਇਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ 4 ਚਿਕਨਸ ਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਸਰੇ ਦੇ ਮਗਰ ਭੱਜ ਕੇ ਹਰਾਉਣ ਤਾਂ ਖਤਮ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਪ੍ਰਕਿਰਿਆ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਚੱਲੇਗੀ।
Man accused of trying to kill Trump wrote a book urging Iran to assassinate the ex-president. Ryan Wealthy Routh portrayed himself online as a man who built housing for homeless people in Hawaii, tried to recruit fighters for Ukraine to defend itself against Russia, and described his support and then disdain for Donald Trump, even urging Iran to kill him. You are free to assassinate Trump, Routh wrote on Iran in an apparently self-published book in 2023. Ukraine's unwinnable war, which described the former president as a fool and buffoon for both the January 6, 2021 Capitol riots and the tremendous blunder of leaving the Iran nuclear deal. Routh wrote that he once voted for Trump and must take part of the blame for the child that we elected for our next president that ended up being brainless. Routh 58 was arrested Sunday after authorities say he stalked the GOP presidential nominee as he golfed in West Palm Beach, Florida with an AK-47 style rifle in an apparent assassination attempt thwarted by the Secret Service. 3 officials who identified Routh spoke to the Associated Press on conditions of anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss the ongoing investigation and search for a motive. Through this voluminous online footprint, public records, news interviews and videos, a picture emerged of Routh as a man with criminal past, plenty of outrage and shifting politics. His over 500 posts on X showed his views ranging from the left to the right, including support for politicians such as Bernie Sanders, Tulsi Gabbard and Nikki Haley, as well as Trump. Voter record shows he registered as an unaffiliated voter in North Carolina in 2012, most recently voting in person during the state's Democratic primary in March. Routh also made 19 small donations totaling $140 since 2019 to Act Blue, a political action committee that supports Democratic candidates, according to federal campaign finance records. In a tweet in June 2020, after the police killing of George Floyd, Routh said then President Trump could win re-election by issuing an executive order to prosecute police misconduct. However, in recent years, his post appears to have soared on Trump, and he expressed support for President Joe Biden and President Kamala Harris, the current Democratic presidential nominee. Democracy is on the ballot and we cannot lose, he wrote on X in April in support of Biden. In July, following the assassination attempt on Trump at a rally in Pennsylvania, a post on Routh's account urged Biden and Harris to visit those wounded in the shooting and attend the funeral of the firefighter who was killed. Trump will never do anything for them, Routh wrote. Show the world what compassion and humanity is all about. In his book listed on Amazon and viewed by the AP, Routh noted, I got so tired of people asking me if I'm a Democrat or Republican as I refuse to be put in a category. The world would be better it were run by women, he wrote in the book, and has links to his website X account because it seems that the totality of the world's problems revolve around man with massive insecurity and childlike intelligence and behavior. He posted frequently on social media about Ukraine and other conflicts, and he had a website seeking to raise money and recruit volunteers to fight for Kyiv. The photo of the wiry wild-haired Routh on his side shows him smiling, wearing a t-shirt and jacket adorned with US flags. Fight and die to stop aggression, he posted on X in February 2023 about Ukraine. Everyone should be outraged and helping. This is about good versus evil, Routh said in a video circulating online, and in a tweet he said, I'm going to fight and die for Ukraine. Video shot by the AP showed Routh as a small demonstration by Kyiv's Independence Square in April 2022, 2 months after Russia's President Vladimir Putin ordered an invasion of the country. A placard he was holding said, we cannot tolerate corruption and evil for another 50 plus years. End Russia for our kids. We wrote a blue vest with the US flag on the back. That same day, he also visited a makeshift memorial to foreigners killed by Putin. But Raut never served in the Ukrainian army or worked with its military, said Alexander Shahuri of the Foreigners Coordination Department of the Ukraine Ground Forces Command. Shahuri told AP that Raut periodically contacted the International Legion of Ukraine with what he describes as non-essential ideas that can best be described as delusional. Raut appeared in a video standing in front of the U.S. Capitol and expressing frustration that Ukraine wasn't taking more of the Afghan commands he tried to recruit. They are afraid that anybody and everybody in a Russia spy, he told the news website Semaphore in 2023. Earlier this year, he even tweeted at singers Bruno Mars and Dave Matthews to organize a We Are the World style effort for Kyiv. We need an emotional tribute song for Ukraine as supports Stoll, he wrote. I have lyrics and music. Raut also tweeted to former basketball star Dennis Rodman asking for help lifting sanctions against North Korea to ease tension with the country. In another, he invites a dozen protesters in Hong Kong to stay at his Hawaii home to escape a Chinese crackdown. Raut lived most of his life in Greensboro, North Carolina, where he run-ins with law enforcement included a 2002 felony conviction of reportedly possessing a fully automatic machine gun. While court records don't give details about the case, the Greensboro News and Record reported the arrest came after Raut ran from a traffic stop and held off police for 3 hours with a weapon at a roofing business. State records listed him as the business owner. Records also show Raut was convicted of a felony count of possession of stolen goods in 2010 as well as misdemeanors including illegally carrying a concealed weapon, a hit-and-run incident, speeding and driving, and a revoked license. In each case, the judge sentenced Raut to either probation or a suspended sentence, allowing him to escape prison. It was not immediately clear how Raut was able to obtain a weapon. In most states, it is generally forbidden for a person convicted of felony to purchase or possess a firearm. In 2018, Raut moved to the small town of Kawa, Hawaii, about 45 minutes outside Honolulu, to go in business with his adult son building small wooden sheds. According to his LinkedIn page, the structures would help address the highest homelessness rate in the United States due to unparalleled gentrification. All of us are tired of seeing the homeless people all over the island with nowhere to go, he told Honolulu Star Advertiser in 2019. No one answered the door Sunday at his blue stucco house near the beach that is colorfully painted with wooden cutouts of fish. A white pickup truck with a Biden-Harris bumper sticker and a flat tire was in the driveway. Neighbor Christopher Tam said Raut kept to himself and was respectful, cordial and kind. It's just been very surprising, Tam said. If he did have anything to do with it, it's very shocking to us.
ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੇ ਸਾਬਕਾ ਰਾਸ਼ਟਰਪਤੀ ਤੇ ਮੌਜੂਦਾ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਡੋਨਲਡ ਟਰੰਪ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਲਾਈਫ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਦੂਸਰੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਹਮਲਾ ਕਰਨ ਦੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਦੋਸ਼ੀ ਰਾਉਤ ਨੂੰ ਗ੍ਰਿਫਤਾਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ ਗਿਆ। ਹੁਣ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਕਾਰਗੁਜ਼ਾਰੀਆਂ ਦਾ ਲੰਬਾ ਚਿੱਠਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਨਸ਼ਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਔਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਲਿਖੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਣੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਖਿਆਲ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰਗਟਾਇਆ। यूक्रेन ਦੀ ਜੰਗ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਸ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਔਰ ਮੌਜੂਦਾ ਸਮੇਂ ਰਸ਼ੀਆ ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਡੋਨਲਡ ਟਰੰਪ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸਹਿਮਤੀ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਦੇਣ ਤੋਂ ਉਪਰੰਤ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਡੈਮੋਕ੍ਰੈਟਿਕ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੇ ਮੁਖੀ ਬਾਈਡਨ ਤੇ ਕੈਮਲਾ ਹੈਰਿਸ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਦਾ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਹੈ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੱਡੇ ਪੱਧਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਆਇਆ ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਗਏ ਤਾਂ ਉਸ ਦਾ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਮੁੱਦਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਹੁਣ ਇੱਥੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕੀ ਬੇਘਰੇ ਲੋਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਘਰ ਬਣਾ ਕੇ ਦੇਣ ਦਾ ਵਪਾਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਣੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਪੁੱਤਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੰਮ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਔਰ ਹੋਨੋਲੁਲੂ ਤੋਂ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ ਥੋੜੇ ਕਿਲੋਮੀਟਰ ਦੂਰ ਤੇ ਇਹਦੀ ਰਿਹਾਇਸ਼ ਸੀ। ਜਦੋਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਪਹੁੰਚਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਮੂਹਰੇ ਉਹਦਾ ਟਰੱਕ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਸਦੇ ਵੀ ਟਾਇਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਨ ਪਰ ਗੁਆਂਢੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਕਾਫੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਸ਼ਾਂਤੀ पसंद ਤੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਹਿਣ ਵਾਲਾ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਹੈ।
इसी के साथ हमें दीजिएगा इजाजत। खबरां दा लेखा जोखा प्रोग्राम से until next time, goodbye and be safe.